The Good Vibrations podcast is made possible by sponsorship from the Phoenix Light Foundation. Visit thephoenixlightfoundation.co.nz for more information.
Welcome to Good Vibrations with me, Phyllis Brown. I believe that every person has an extraordinary story to tell, one that will give you hope when there is no light at the end of the tunnel. So join me and be inspired by my guests' journey as they share insights you can use to grow and develop on your path. This week, we're going to be looking at the word agenda. It's one of those words that's really come up for me a lot through this past month, both with my clients but also on a really personal level. And I'm joined in the studio by Nathan, our lovely technician who puts the shows together. So welcome to the show, Nathan.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And so we've just had a little bit of a discussion before we've come live on air. So agendas, what are agendas? So people can create a personal agenda, they can create a business agenda, some people will have hidden agendas. But what that has come up for people that's come to see me this past few weeks is that they feel like they're being steered into a direction or into a place that's not comfortable because they're fulfilling other people's agendas. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then they have a light bulb moment. So I know I've had a couple of light bulb moments from, again, it seems to be in that business world or work level where management, through having discussions, and you think, yep, we're on the same wavelength, but suddenly you find that we would maybe call it the goalposts have moved, but actually the agenda has changed.
Yep.
And so, I know from a personal perspective, we had an event where we thought we were really clear in our communication in January, and by June nothing had changed. And it wasn't until September that I suddenly realised, having a memo from these colleagues, that their agenda had changed somewhere in between January and June. And so they had a hidden agenda, and it wasn't until that memo came in we thought, that's when that wasn't actioned.
That's happening. Yeah.
That's when does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, I get that.
So as an example for myself, when some people really wear their heart on their sleeve and they will give you a clear agenda, then it's really easy. You know exactly what you're in for. The journey is right there.
Yep.
And so I certainly had an experience in my time as a regional manager where one of the ladies who was highly ambitious determined on our first team meeting that she wanted the top job, and the way to do that was to get everyone else out.
Right.
And that was a real eye-opener, brand new job for me. Here was this agenda set out in front of us. Like, wow, okay, you're an interesting person. But we all knew what was coming. We all knew that she wanted this job.
Yeah.
And so therefore we could really prepare for it. The agenda was out there.
Yep.
And so when it came to team meetings, I just found myself being really aware of what to say, what not to say, being prepared for battle, having the right things done, coming to team meetings, really, really prepared. I was the last man standing, which I think is just a testament to just how prepared I was and my tenacity. And so when I took my redundancy and she was left with her, she'd completed her agenda. She had completed her agenda, she'd got the post that she'd always wanted, but within a year the whole structure of what she wanted completely diminished. It failed, it collapsed. Because sometimes when we set an agenda, we forget, well, what's the journey like afterwards?
Yep. We don't see the journey after the end goal.
No.
Your end goal is to complete your agenda, and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's slightly different from manifesting, and it's slightly different from attracting. An agenda has a set outcome.
Yeah.
And it's very purposeful. and it's very focused.
Yeah.
I think for me it was I enjoyed the journey with this lady. I grew immensely and I grew really strong, and I knew how to create strategies. As you know,
Yep.
we both have
Yep.
Strength Finder, and strategy is one of our strengths.
Yep.
So I developed a great way of creating strategy in my life to deal with what may or may not occur at our team meetings. So I really, I do thank her, because she made me this really different person. And I felt really comfortable in saying, actually, I'll just take my redundancy, because I deserve my redundancy.
Yeah.
And this is what you wanted, so enjoy it. And really bask in the glory of this was what you set out to begin with. So really enjoy the journey, even though it changed for her afterwards. So what about yourself? What about yourself in terms of agendas?
Well, reflecting, since as you've been talking, I've just been sort of thinking, I have one example, but I'm thinking about my other previous job, the first job that I ever had. My first paid job, I should say. And it was, there was an agenda. There's always been agendas, and it's always been from sort of middle management.
Oh, yeah.
Not like top tier management, but like that middle 2IC sort of level. But the example that does spring to mind is the job that my previous position, I worked in a trade store, and we were the biggest store in the country by sales volume. Obviously, being in the city that we're in, a lot of rebuilding work going on, a lot of repair work going on, so lots of trade product moving. So we just sort of got that position by sheer location, I guess. When I joined the company, we were really big into doing repair stuff. So our sales volumes were always really high, and we had good turnover in our store. My manager was great with people, great with customers, great with the staff, not so good with his paperwork. And management above him, their agenda, which became quite clear to me maybe 3 months after they moved him out of the store, was that it wasn't about the people, wasn't about what was actually happening in the store. It was a minimum level of management style they wanted in there, and that was it. Whether it worked or not, they just wanted a professional manager. So they brought in another manager from a different store who always wanted this position. That was her agenda. And she was okay with some stuff, not good with people, not good with staff. Very professional in a very relaxed environment. The customers didn't really connect with her. And I think she got to that point where you said, your agenda, you get to the end goal, what happens afterwards? Well, she got to the store that she wanted, but she didn't actually know what to do with it. Which became quite clear that she was quite lost, and it was really difficult for us as a team because we didn't know what was happening. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have goals or targets or anything because she wasn't fulfilling the agenda of her boss, which she was very aware of, was made clear to her but not to anyone else. But she didn't know what to do anymore because she'd completed her agenda, and it was kind of like, oh, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And I think it's that, like you said, it's different from having a goal, and it's different from having a purpose. Once you reach it, what happens?
Yeah.
And it can be really difficult working with people with that because if they complete their agenda, then they don't know what to do. They don't,
and it's a very focused process. So what we'll do is we'll come back after the break, and we'll maybe look at the topic of conscious agendas or unconscious agendas. So we're just going to keep ourselves in the mindset of agenda world, and we'll come back soon.
The Good Vibrations podcast would not be possible without the support of Phyllis Brown. For personal development and life coaching sessions, theta healings and spiritual insights, go to phyllisbrown.co.nz to book a session in person, on the phone or by Skype today.
So we're back after our little break there, and so we've looked at some sort of personal experiences, but there is this process of the subtle underlying process with agendas where they're either you're consciously aware of them, or there's the hidden agendas. And I think it's the hidden agendas that tend to catch us by surprise. We maybe see this more with our family. We maybe see it more with our friendships. Business, the agendas actually become quite apparent quite quickly. But in our family and in our friendships, it can take quite a while for their purpose of being in our life to sort of bubble up to the surface. And I think that there are some occasions where we have to really disassociate from other people's wants and needs, because that's their agenda, to, well, where does our wants and needs sort of come into play? What is best for us? And those are the hardest things. I think that we don't want to be mean to our friends. We don't want to say no to our family. However, sometimes for us to fulfill our agenda, which is to complete our life purpose, which is to really have a joyous life, a life that we want to feel that we've lived well, that we've met our goals, we've ticked our bucket list, we've had really joyous experiences. But there are some times where people will come in and they'll roadblock you because they'll have a really specific agenda. I think for me, on friendships, I do take it quite hard when I discover someone's agenda. I think I'm absolutely the worst person at choosing friends. Because I get so far, and then there's this disappointment. I feel hurt and I feel abandoned by friendships, but that's because their agenda has come out. And I think one of the biggest episodes in my life was when I was in my early 20s. And as you know, I'm a psychic reader. I don't call myself that now because it attracts certain friendships who have agendas.
It brings in the agenda,
Brings in the agenda. So when I was about 24, I thought, right, okay, who are my friends? Do I actually have any friends? And so I put out the word that actually I was going to start charging for my sessions. It was my time. It was taking out my personal time away from my family, my partner. And suddenly all these friends just disappeared. I'm not going to call them so-called friends. I would maybe put them in the bracket of acquaintance. Because their agenda for being in my life was, I don't have to think about... As long as we're friends,
I can get it
for free. I can get a free reading. Or I don't have to think about any issues because I'll just give Phil a phone and she'll solve it. She's going to tell me it's going to be okay. And so in friendships, it's really those hidden agendas. We so want to be loved, and we so want to be accepted by people around us, and we want to feel valued in a very different way from families. So we do accept people on a friendship level in our life, and then suddenly that agenda comes up, or we become aware that we're being used. So therefore there's a hidden agenda there. Or we become aware that we're the one that's giving everything, and we're not getting anything back. So there's an agenda there. So for me, I feel absolutely gutted when a friendship stops. I'm quite hard on myself. I just think, that was really stupid, Phyllis. How did you get into that? And why did you allow that to happen? Did you allow that to happen? And then I take it on the chin. Then I do the whole Leo thing, because I'm a Leo the lion. So I do the whole Leo thing. And as you know, I mull things over for
a very long time.
A very long time.
Very long time.
It takes me about a year to work my way through other people's hidden agendas. It takes me a year to mull it over, to think about, so what could have I done differently? Did I let myself down? Did I let them down? What was the pain? What was the hurt? What's the lesson? So how can I change? And how can I develop friendships where I'd rather have what that that work colleague did and go, this is my
This is
agenda.
what it is. Deal with it. Yeah.
I'd rather have friendships that come in, so this is who I am and this is what I want out of this friendship. And then you know exactly where you stand. But the hidden stuff, man, that's hard.
Yeah.
So how does that relate to you, do you think?
I've been thinking, I, much like yourself, don't really make many friendships. Obviously, we moved to New Zealand when I was quite young. So my whole friendship dynamic changed, left all my friends in Scotland, made some new friends in high school, and that, I think, started out in high school. Everyone has an agenda of trying to be popular and trying to be that person that everyone associates with. I was kind of like, I don't know anybody. Everyone else is already friends because they moved through school together, mostly. I don't know anyone, no idea what I'm doing here. New country, new system. I'm a bit confused.
Yeah.
But everyone wanted to be friends with me because I was the foreign kid with a cool accent, apparently. And that died down after sort of 6 months. So all the people that I thought were my friends disappeared.
Right.
Because I started to lose my accent, or it wasn't interesting anymore. There were other people that they could associate with, and that was that. But the one that stood out to me was someone that I met through one of my classmates at college.
Yeah.
I studied video production, and so I was a cameraman on his project, and this person was one of his actors in his final project. And I've sort of stayed connected with this person, not really, I wouldn't say friends, more of an acquaintance.
Yeah.
And you know, he'd sort of ask me every year if I want to do this film competition. So it's the 48-hour film competition. You write, film, and produce a short film in 48 hours over a weekend. It's very intense and quite hard if you're not like a really cohesive team, as we found out. So I did it not this year, but I think last year. Yeah, I did it last year. And it's hard, really hard. The team, I didn't know anyone else in the team apart from the director, who was this acquaintance that I met, and hadn't really worked with him in a directorial role. He studied more than I did, so he did a second year course that I didn't do. He did the same course that I did as well. He technically knew more than I did, but didn't apply any of his skills to the team. And it basically ended up that I ended up having to direct the whole team, direct the film, write the shoot, edit it, direct the sound guy, bring it all together and do everything bar deliver it, which isn't what I signed up for. I signed up to be a cameraman, and that was it. But what really stood out to me is his actual hidden agenda was, in a meeting that we had like an hour before the start of the competition, before everyone else had arrived, he sat down and said, I've got this idea. I want to start a media production company. But I want you to bring all of your equipment and give me access to all of your equipment and all that stuff, and you can be a part of it and you can do the production work. And I'm kind of like, right, but I'm the marketing manager for a business that sells plumware. I'm kind of busy doing that. I don't really have time to edit and shoot video. I like shooting video. It's something that I'm passionate about. I study it, but I don't do it very often. As you know, I like it, but it's not something that I can currently make a living off of, so I don't do it. But his whole agenda was, well, I want to have this company, but I don't really want to do the work because I'm not very good at doing the work, even though I've got the degree that says I should be. And he knew nothing about running a business, about cost, about any of that. And it was just kind of like, right, so you've just sort of, and I only really clicked onto it like a month after we did the competition, because it wasn't until then that he came back and said, so do you want to do this studio thing? And I'm thinking, yeah, but what are you bringing to the table? You want me to bring all my equipment and all of my stuff, and you want me to go and find clients and market it and brand it, which isn't really my job. But what are you bringing to the table? You're going to name the business after yourself and that's it. I don't really want to do that. That's not part of my story, not part of my journey, but you're not going to do your own business. Your agenda is that you want me to do it for you and then earn money off of it. So that's the one that stood out to me.
Okay. And has he
But I
started
picked
his
up-
production company?
No.
No. Okay.
And so he comes back to me. He came back to me this year and asked if I wanted to do it again, and I didn't do it because I actually didn't have the time. Not that I didn't want to do it, I just didn't have the time.
Yeah.
Because it's 48 hours of continuous being awake, filming, editing, writing, and then I think I slept for about 3 days after.
Yeah.
I crashed.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the time to kill a whole week doing it, so I didn't do it again. But no, he hasn't done anything with it, and I think he's stopped doing video production.
Right.
On the whole, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing. I think with hidden agendas, it's a really one-sided story. And it's only when we start to realise what that one-sided story is that when we pull ourselves away, then it has no footing, it has no foundation.
Yeah.
So hidden agendas, for those of you that are listening, if you're in a situation where you have a hidden agenda, then sort of think about, is this a healthy way of thinking or being? Do I actually need to tell people what my plans are so that we can get a buy-in, so that we can actually build a structure around this agenda? But really look at your motives. I think for people with hidden agendas, their motives are usually about self rather than about the bigger picture or for the greater good of what's going on. And we see all that in the political agenda. We call it a political agenda.
Yeah.
So they have an aim and an objective and a goal that they want to get to because, in politics there's always hidden agendas.
There is, yeah.
And it's that whole distraction. Well, we're distracting over here with the nonsensical stuff, then we're actually dealing with the hidden agenda over here that has a bigger impact, a negative impact. And so I think, listener, while you're out there, just sort of look at your friendships possibly that are taking you on a path where you're thinking, actually, what's in it for me? And I think that's an okay thing to ask.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a selfish thing to ask. I think it's actually a really proactive thing to ask, because we should be asking, well, if I am going to be helping you, then what is in it for me? What do I get out of? And it's not about a financial gain. It's about, does it make you feel good? Does it make you feel useful? Do you feel valued? But if you're feeling used and unappreciated and not part of something bigger, then that's where
not
you go,
good.
actually. No, don't you? Yeah.
That self-care is important.
I think so.
And it is that, like you said, people often view it as being selfish, but it's, if you don't look after yourself, how are you going to be there to look after anyone else?
Exactly.
So you have to look after yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. So what I thought we'd do is we'll take a short break, and when we come back we'll look at just the word agenda and the composition of that word agenda, and how we can use agendas in a really positive way, but in a really, when we really set an agenda, man, do you manifest in your life. So let's see what happens then.
All right.
The Good Vibrations podcast would like to thank the Phoenix Light Foundation for their support. Unlock your passion for crystals and open yourself up to the world of crystal healing with our self-guided crystal course that you can complete at your own pace online. With guided videos and written support exercises, you can enhance your life with crystal energy. Get 50% off today with the code PHOENIX50. Go to thephoenixlightfoundation.co.nz to start your journey.
Okay, so we've looked at work agendas, we've looked at personal agendas. So what is an agenda, and how can we set our own personal agendas? So that's what I really wanted to bring forward, because I write agendas all the time. So every workshop that I write, every course, if it's a day course, a 10-week course, a teacher training course, there is an agenda. An agenda and an agenda, I should say, it has two major components. It has an aim, and then there is the objective. So the aim is the goal. So it's words like, by the end of this month, we will have achieved. So when we're thinking about some of our more personal processes, so let's say we're going on a diet.
Yep.
I'm looking at my food right now. So by the end of 2000 and whatever, I would like to shed 5 kilos.
Yep.
So that's the aim of it. That's
Yep.
the goal. And the objective is, this is the action that we need to create so that we can achieve our
the
goal.
Right. Yep.
So the objective is by reducing my sugar intake, by logging my food diary once again, and this is for real, dear listener, by logging my food diary again, keeping an eye on what I am eating, I would hopefully meet my agenda, which is to lose about 5 kilos by the end of this year. It's not, and it's quite broad. When we set an objective and when we set an aim, it's one of those things that if we set out the journey, the actions that we need, then it just happens.
Yep.
So we've seen this, as a family, we have either read or are reading or about to read The Barefoot Investor. So he sets out financial aims and objectives.
Yep.
So he'll go, so you've got 5 credit cards you want to pay off. So that's the agenda. So the aim is, when do you want to pay it off and how are you going to do it?
Yep.
And I feel that when we get lost in our agendas, we need to make sure that our motives are really pure, that we have the right motive or the energy behind it. Because if we don't, then we can't impact people with our own agendas, because suddenly it becomes a hidden agenda. Well, I didn't know that you wanted to refine your diet, Phyllis. I didn't know that you wanted to have this goal. So we want to include everyone in that whole process so that people are not feeling disempowered, or that you're not going to take someone else off their path. So, for my lovely, beautiful partner out there will always be biscuits in the biscuit tin, but I'm just not going to participate in eating them. But that doesn't mean to say that he has to stop eating them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what I'm thinking, when you look at your co-worker who wanted the top position.
Yes.
So obviously she didn't have she had her aim and objective. She made it very clear that's what she wanted. But is there a way, say, if I'm in a business at a entry-level position and I want to be in a management position, how do I set an objective in a positive way with that pure intention?
Yes.
Rather than by getting everyone above me fired to get to their position.
Yes.
How do I set the intention to get there in a positive way?
So what you need to do, so if you're a floor manager, so I'll take my example. So my floor, I was just a shop assistant. And in fact, when I went to school on career day, the lovely Mrs. Wilkinson, I talk about Mrs. Wilkinson, and so I turned up. I am by no means the sharpest tool in the box. I am educationally quite poor. So when she saw me and she says, well, you're a waste of time. I actually don't know why you're here. And I said, okay. She said, so the only advice I can give you is get a job in a shop. And I thought, oh, okay, cool.
Right.
So, but I actually went off and became a nanny because I needed somewhere to live, and I developed skills in communication with parents, with co-workers, with children. And then I came back to Aberdeen and I saw a sign that said full-time staff wanted. I thought, oh, so my agenda was, I need a job, I'll get that job.
Okay.
So I walked in. And I sat on the only chair. The office was really about 2-3 times the size of the table we were sitting at. So it was a windowsill with a shelf and a door. And so you open the door and you're at the shelf and the windowsill. It was tiny. And so the shop manager at the time sat on the windowsill and I sat on the only chair. And so my agenda was really clear. I needed this job. So she asked about my experience and I talked about my Saturday girl job. And so I said to her, so I'll just start on Monday. And she said, well, that's fine. So she fulfilled my agenda, but I also fulfilled her agenda. Because she had a new staff member. I really needed a job. And so when I was in the job, I had a floor manager and I thought, wow, I'm not quite sure she's a good fit for this person. She had her agenda. So what I set out to do is, well, I actually want her job. So I need to know how to do stock takes, I need to know how to deal with customers, I need to know how to do the till. And I actually went out of my way to become the best at everything. I could, if I was asked to go and clean the staff room and the toilet and the kitchen area, it was my turn, I went and I did it.
Yep.
If I had to do the stock take on my own in the stock room, I went and I did it.
Mm-hmm.
If I was targeted to get £500 worth of sales on that day, I went out there and I did that.
Right.
So when you have aspirations for a successful career and you want to aspire to the best position that you could possibly be, then you do it by showing that you are the best version of who you are, not by taking other people down, because all it does is it takes you down.
Right.
For me, at the age of 24, with this company, so this comes back to Mrs. Wilkinson, I was a store manager. My store started out with a target of about £980,000. We did well over £1 million. In fact, we got up to about £1,020,000 as a turnover. I had 32 staff. I won Manager of the Year competition. And I always thanked Mrs. Wilkinson for saying, well, actually, I don't know why you're sitting here. You know, you're absolutely hopeless educationally, so go and get a job in a shop.
Yeah.
But I became the best person I could be in that shop.
Okay.
And then went on to take that career experience and become an area manager, to become a regional manager, to become a national manager of Scotland. So turn your desire, your aspirations, to be the best person that you can be. It doesn't matter what other people are doing.
Right.
If they're not good at their job, then that's their learning lesson. They need to figure that out. They need to figure out why staff are always leaving. They need to figure out why they're not meeting deadlines. They need to figure out why their targets are not being met. When we, as a team, in Next 2, as it was back then in the 1980s, won every regional competition, we set out our agenda is we're going to win it.
Yep.
That was our team objective. We're going to win that. And we won every team competition. And we amassed that money and we had a ball. The money was shared out amongst the team because we all had it. But an agenda is a really powerful process. Personal agendas, definitely, if you take people down, what goes around comes around, so you will be taken down. Absolutely. The next person coming along will take you down because they're going to fill your boots.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, when I left the shop, the assistant manager, she filled my boots, but she still had a really dynamic team because she saw the energy and the process that I used, so that's what she learned. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's almost like, the reflection I get is that in the positive aspect, it's more about goals and aspirations, where it's terminology, but it's, you strive for a goal, whereas you complete an agenda.
You do complete it. That's a good phrase.
Whereas an agenda is more of the negative.
End date.
Yeah. Where in the positive aspect, your goal was to get a job. You could say your goal or your agenda.
Yeah.
But you completed your goal, and you moved on to your next goal. Yeah. It's interesting.
Because I think with agendas, there is an absolute defined, completely defined purpose and point of completion.
Definitely.
And I think that's the difference you'll see where people have a really set up agenda, then they don't know what to do after that. Once they've completed that agenda, they don't know what's the next step.
Yeah.
Because they haven't thought the process through. Whereas I think to use agendas in your life right now, I know for me personally, when it comes to, let's say, losing weight, that's an aspiration. And sometimes that aspiration is too big a goal.
Yep.
Whereas you actually set an agenda around it.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So sometimes our aspirational goals can be so vast that they become overwhelming. But if we can set an agenda and then refocus the agenda once we get that target, then we refocus it, then it becomes something different. So I know for me, in terms of a personal level, I absolutely have an agenda of gaining financial control. Barefoot Investor, absolutely fantastic. I'm loving his strategies because he gives you strategies.
Yeah.
And so applying those strategies, we definitely have an agenda to become financially in the positive and be, what's that phrase that you use, asset rich?
Have a positive net worth.
There we go, that's the phrase.
Yeah.
So to have those, to be that, say that phrase,
A positive net worth.
to have a positive net worth,
Yeah.
because our aspirations is to own our own home.
Yeah.
But you need to put in an agenda of how
Yeah.
you're going to do it, what is the aim of it. By changing my behaviour, by changing my thought process, I would have this goal. I'll have this outcome.
So it's like an agenda is a goal with the strategy. It's that aim and objective,
Yeah.
but it has the strategy of how you're going
how
to do
you're
it.
gonna do
Like
it.
your manager or your coworker's agenda was, I'm going to get that top position by getting you all out of your jobs.
Yes, that's right.
It's the by doing that bit that makes it
Yes.
the agenda.
It does.
'Cause otherwise it would have just been a goal.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But she had a very clear agenda by getting
That
you
she
out
wanted
of
to
your
get you out of
jobs.
your job to get
and
to the
she, and
position.
because she vocalised that, it was just like, wow, okay,
Yeah.
this is going to be a really cool journey. Took her 5 years to get rid of me.
Yeah.
I was quite happy to take my redundancy. But I know that by wanting a positive net worth so that we can then be in a
our
position
home
to
and-
get a mortgage, that's
Yeah.
the aspiration.
Yeah.
That's the goal, that's the aspirational stuff. We would love to have our own home,
Yeah.
but we need to set an agenda of how we're going to get there. So the agenda is, by the end of whatever year it is, we will have a positive cash net worth that will help us achieve that. But the objective is
to-
by changing our financial habits,
Yeah.
we'll be able to achieve that. And I think, I don't know, it's just this really interesting concept that just came up during conversations with people where they felt let down by other people, or they felt bullied, or they
Yeah.
felt that their needs have not been met. In reflection, and as we unbag things in
Yeah.
a session, the agendas have become quite clear.
Yeah.
So it's just, I suppose, the aim and the objective of today's show is that people start to think about what is working in their life and what isn't working in their life. So what's not working and why is it not working? Is it because of them, or is it that
Because of
outside
someone else.
influence? Is there some hidden agendas? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So I think that I'm going to be happy to report on some of my fulfilled agendas, my completion to help me get to my aspirational goals.
Yep.
But I think it's something just to maybe think about where people are feeling a little bit deflated with the manifesting and the law of attraction stuff. Actually, if they set out a really specific goal and then a strategy,
The strategy to complete it.
that's when they'll start seeing that they're manifesting and their aspirations are coming into play. It's just a different, as you say, it's semantics, it's words.
Yeah, it is. But I think it is the difference between a goal and an agenda is that knowing the path to completing it. And often with goals, they become cyclical. You know, I'm going to get to that position. Well, then I'm going to get to that position. I'm going to get to that position. Whereas with an agenda, it's just that's where I want to be, and I'm going to do it by doing this. And obviously, so your agenda in retail was, I'm going to be the floor manager by being the best at being a floor manager,
being the best
rather
assistant.
than by screwing the floor manager over until they got fired and I took their position.
Yeah, they did that themselves, actually. So, and that's the thing, you know, when we see, if we're working, let's say, with a work colleague, and they're not fulfilling their criteria or their KPIs, then just allow that process. But you be the best, stop looking at what they're not doing and start looking at what you are doing. And you be the best version of that. I made sure that I was the best sales assistant out of the selection that was there.
Yeah.
And there were 4 next doors, so
Yeah.
anybody could have got that floor
Yeah.
manager's job. So, the regional manager along with the store manager could have chosen any member of staff out of any of the 4 shops, but I made sure that I was the best version. So I would be in the running for that choice. What was happening with the floor manager at that point in time, that was her stuff.
Yeah.
And I couldn't change that. And I think it's the same in family life, where we struggle with relationships and we struggle with maintaining good relationships. Then you have to be the best version of yourself, not reflect the dysfunctional aspect of what we're seeing. Because ultimately you want your good relationship and you want your good qualities to rub off and reflect, so that hopefully that will soften and they then join your side, rather than you battling to make them change. Because that then becomes a hidden agenda.
Yeah, true. Yeah, exactly. Yep, I get that.
I think for me, I've just found this last month really fascinating with what clients have brought forward and with what clients have had to reflect on, and how they've gone away and changed, and then the feedback that comes back where they've gone, wow, I've changed this in my life, so therefore I've had a much more positive outcome.
Yeah. Nice.
Cool. So is that us for today? Is it a wrap?
I think so. I think it is.
Cool.
We've reached that point where the conversation slowed down. So.
It has, okay. Yeah. Well, we'll let it end there then.
All right, thank you.
You've been listening to Good Vibrations with me, Phyllis Brown. I hope my guest story today has inspired you to grow and make positive changes in your life. You can find Good Vibrations on Facebook and Instagram and share your journey with us. If you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcast and share, rate and review our show. Or follow us on Spotify and YouTube. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and join us next week for more Good Vibrations.
This podcast was brought to you by the Phoenix Light Foundation. For personal development courses, visit thephoenixlightfoundation.co.nz and use the code PHOENIX50 for 50% off all courses.